Welcome, everyone. Happy, as I like to say, Friday Junior. Welcome to our third session of our Summer Career Series. My name is Melanie Butron, Program Manager at TheDream.Us, and also a very proud former graduate and scholarship recipient of the same scholarship. So we are excited to have everyone on today's call, especially our incoming new scholars and as well as our current returning scholars and alumni. So welcome, everyone. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your major, your college, and where you're attending. So that way we can all get to know each other in the chat, as well as our panelists. Bonus points if you want to share your LinkedIn URL. We're all about community and networking with one another and connecting. So if you have a LinkedIn, feel free to share it in the chat as well. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping rules. One, if you can make sure to mute yourself throughout the entirety of this event, that would be great. If you have any questions, make sure that you put them in the chat. It might be best to wait till the end to put your questions in the chat during our Q&A session because our chat is popping during these summer career sessions. So feel free to engage in there and ask your questions there. Now, I will say if you do have any questions specific to the Dream.Us scholarship, we encourage you to refer to your scholar program guides, or if you want to ask those questions in our scholar Facebook group, you're more than welcome to ask them there. But for this event, we would like for your questions to relate to the topic and to our panelists, so that way we can get the most out of their experience in today's session. We're also recording today, and we'll share the recording out once it's available and posted in our YouTube channel. And if you missed out on the first two Summer Career Series sessions, feel free to check out the 2023 Summer Career Series playlist on our YouTube channel. Okay, so with that said, you are in for a treat. Let's get started with our UndocuEntrepreneur Panel. So if our panelists, if you can please introduce yourself, your name, a little bit about you, where you're from, and your business, and how long you've been in business for or established, and just like a little brief description of your services and products would be great. So we can get started with Myra, and the rest of the panelists can go afterwards.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for being here. My name is Mayra. My pronouns are she, her, or ella. Sorry, ella. In Spanish, I'm a little sick. I was born and raised in Mexico until the age of 14, and because I self-deported in 2010 and came back in 2013, I didn't qualify for DACA. And I graduated in 2020 with a master's degree in clinical counseling psychology. And so I am an associate marriage and family therapist. And my business, Undocumented Health, is not a clinical practice. It is a for-profit business in which I am a speaker, consultant, presenter, and group facilitator. So I pretty much take everything that I learned in school and present it to other businesses, organizations, so I can make some money.
Hello, everyone. So grateful to be here. My name is Toba Ray. I'm originally from Lagos, Nigeria. I came to America at the age of 7. And the pivotal time in my life was when I graduated high school and I wanted to go to college, but I quickly realized I couldn't because I obviously couldn't get financial aid. But that moment really created the entrepreneur in me. That was the moment I became an entrepreneur. And 10 years down the line, I created my company name, The Petal Effect. And about 3 years ago, I finally launched, got the courage to actually go for it, and have been a full-time business owner for The Petal Effect. And The Petal Effect is a floral and design company championing inclusivity and diversity and representation. So we really try to factor in on underdeserved communities, really, and just celebrating who we are and our stories.
Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Khundamir, and I am originally from India. I came to the US when I was 13 years old, and I am a non-DACA undocumented immigrant. And I've been fortunate to have a great education in this country. And after that, just last June, I started my own company called Moon Technology Services. Moon, because it's the name of my grandmother who took care of me for most of my life. She gave me the love, the warmth, and the confidence to pursue whatever I wanted to do in life. And that's exactly what I want to bring to my clients. Moon Technology Services, the services that we provide are the full stack web development services and computer science training. And we're also hoping to go into ed tech services now. But the idea behind Moon Technology Services is to really take away this label that computer science field and IT field has of being difficult and it's only for the smart people and nerds. What I try to bring to my clients is clarity and confidence that they can also pursue and understand these things and change careers if they want to and go into IT and still be successful. But I also provide, I make website applications and whatever the platforms that my clients want me to do. So those are the things that we do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joel. So nice to be here and hear about other people's incredible businesses and their stories and journeys as well. I got here at the age of 5. I have kind of like a unique story because I was a DACA recipient up until about 2017 when I went beyond the 1-year threshold for renewal. So at that point, they were not accepting any more new DACA applications. So I am now a non-DACA individual, and I've been an entrepreneur for about 5 years now, 6 years, but established my official business entity in 2020 during the pandemic out of need. I run a professional development and career services service business. So I'm out of the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley, here in California. And my business partners with NGOs and the counties here in the Bay, and I provide career services for their consumers and job seekers that through state-funded programming. And I also provide alternative career services and workshops to universities in the Bay, starting with the University of San Francisco, where I obtained my Master's of Science in Entrepreneurship and Innovation back in 2022. Again, so happy to be here.
Wonderful. Wow, what a great way to start. Thank you for sharing your backgrounds, where you're coming from, where you're at now. And you kind of all touched on that aha moment of whether out of necessity or whether out of inspiration of becoming entrepreneurs. So let's set up the stage a little more, right? Entrepreneurship, the concept of it at least, can be a little scary or daunting, right? At least when I think about it, I'm like, what? That seems so big or CEO-like. And also wanted to emphasize that maybe even our scholars and their families might already be engaging in entrepreneur concepts, right, or activities, and they may not even realize it. So my question to the panelists, right, how would you describe entrepreneurship in one sentence? And other than having your formal business, right, can you give us an example or a personal example of a time when you were younger and might have been doing entrepreneurial activities, like let's say, for example, selling chips or candy at school or buying things for cheap and upselling them. Let's set the stage there. So I'll hand it off to you, Myra.
Yes, so for me, in one very simple sentence, entrepreneurship is a way to generate income while you have some agency over your life. And that's how I've been feeling, where with my business, I have some agency, I can make decisions. I know how to set up my schedule. It's just the way in which I have a little bit of freedom in a life so chaotic that feels like I have none. But my life and my family and I have always been entrepreneurs, and I didn't even know about it. We've always purchased things. My mom, ever since I was little, she would purchase a bunch of socks and underwear, and she would go house by house to resell them, and she would get money from that. And I learned doing that, where my whole life I've been working in warehouses, restaurants, and other places. And at the same time, in order to survive, I've been getting things from OfferUp or other apps that people post for free, and I resell them. And that's how I've been generating money for many, many years. So a lot of times we don't realize our capacity or how capable we are, how the things that we're doing just because we don't have that label. We've always been entrepreneurs, we just didn't know about that label until now.
Well, that was powerful, Myra. To follow up, entrepreneurship for me is the word that comes to mind is control. And I say taking control of your story and creating your own narrative is how I would put entrepreneurship. And just growing up, just like Myra, I didn't even realize we were participating in entrepreneurship in my family. But when I look back at it, like my parents have always been entrepreneurs. In Nigeria, my mom had a dental clinic where we lived at underneath, and my dad had a photo shop and like a video shop where you could come rent cassettes. I'm kind of giving my age away, but I didn't even realize what was happening till now. And I'm like, wow, my parents really, subconsciously put this in me, and I didn't even know that. So I've always been around entrepreneurship. My parents are entrepreneurs now. They own a Nigerian restaurant in Maryland. So I think it's just something I just always been around and been a part of.
So for me, entrepreneurship is about how you can add value to other people's lives. And when I look back at it, I felt like I didn't have like entrepreneurship around me, even though I was part of my business academy in high school where we had to create products and like pitch products like as a mock. But in my truly in my heart, I never really believed that I could be like a businessman that I am today. But I felt like right when I finished grad school and as I was thinking about what am I going to do next as a non-DACA undocumented student, I really had to think about my life and really evaluate and look at my own powers. And that's when I truly believe that, okay, I can use this and utilize this to add some value to other people's lives. I had a lot to contribute to the society, which I didn't really recognize until I was put under this, situation where, okay, you're going to have to start paying bills now. You really have to start earning. What are you going to do? I feel like we really thrive and our great ideas really come about when we are truly put under pressure. So it could be perceived as a bad thing, but I think being under pressure of not knowing what to do can really bring about your best ideas.
Yeah, for me, I usually always start my workshops with that question, like, what is entrepreneurship? And for me, it's kind of like being able to see opportunities and solutions where an average person may see annoyances and problems. So like, how do I like make a business out of a problem, or how can I provide a solution to an annoyance, right? So it's really hard for me to turn off that part of my brain. So anytime I navigate spaces, I'm like, okay, how can I make this better? Or how can I provide a solution to certain things so that I can make money off of that? And so like similar to Toby and Myra, it's kind of like I've been doing that my whole life, right? Like, okay, I was a high school student. This was before DACA was in effect. Is like, well, my summers I wanted to play sports and my parents could not provide the the funds for me to buy my equipment and stuff like that. And so I would buy keychains. And I remember setting up keychains and like and trying to like market my keychains and like, hey, like for so amount of money, I have these really cool keychains. And I continue to do that up until college as well. Just kind of reselling stuff or buying stuff in bulk and reselling it for profits. Also doing a lot of gig work, going on Craigslist when Craigslist was like big thing back in the day, and like just seeking people like that are looking for assistance, cutting lawns or cleaning out a garage and stuff like that in exchange for money. So like really just developing that entrepreneurship mentality and that undocu-hustle mentality to make things happen, because out of necessity and out of need, you're trying to make money in any way possible, that without necessarily having that title of entrepreneur just yet.
Wow, amazing. I mean, you all pretty much hit the mark on different ways that you define entrepreneurship. And it seems like there's a lot of we can all agree that it allows that independence, that financial freedom. If whether you define it as adding a value or providing a solution to a problem, all your definitions in the one sentence was great, and providing those examples of whether you grew up with it within your family, within your parents, or whether you fell into it out of necessity. Amazing. And we're seeing it in the chat, right? A lot of our participants are saying how refreshing it is to hear these types of stories and how there's a pathway to that independence and financial freedom. So great way to start there. Let's move on to the next question. Let's get a little deeper. So panelists, why did you decide to start a business in your sector, right? Although we're all entrepreneurs, in your specific sector, why did you start your business?
I'm going to be very honest and transparent here. I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. I didn't want to have a business. My dream in life was to graduate, go to work, come back home, and not worry about what happens after that. But I had two options. I had the option of going back to work at a warehouse, which is where most of us non-DACA folks are able to find a job, or I could start my own business, which at first it was very, very scary because I knew nothing about it. I didn't know all the technicalities. I didn't know the laws. I didn't know anything. But then I was like, okay, so I have these two options. I have my 3-year-old daughter, or where I'm going to be continue to miss a lot of her life, or I can challenge myself. And so when I started learning about entrepreneurship, I was like, okay, I know this is going to be a lot of work, but I know it's going to be worth it. So I started finding out more about that. And I was like, okay, this is the knowledge that I have. This is what I'm passionate about. And I can generate money by selling my story. A lot of the times we give our trauma for free. And this time I was like, hey, if you want me to speak about my own trauma, then pay up. And that's how I decided I'm going to have this business.
Thank you, Myra. I really appreciate you saying that. Like, our trauma is not free. Remember that. But I became an entrepreneur, like I shared, at a time in my life where I wanted to go to college. I grew up in Maryland, so there wasn't a lot of resources for me. I always knew I wanted to be an interior designer. I've always had a passion for design. So when I realized I wouldn't go to college to be an interior designer, I started researching other forms of design. I just knew I was a designer. And I quickly stumbled upon floral design. At first, I was looking for event design. And then I seen every event designer was like floral and event designer. And I, at that moment, was like, I can do that. Like, it was literally no thought into it. It was just more of like, I could do that. And that's where my floral design passion developed. And I really started, working with people, just volunteering, just to see if it's something I really wanted to do. But I was so sure of it, and I haven't looked back since, really. So that's really where my journey came from.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. For me, it didn't come as straightforward, but I had to think about it. I took about like a few weeks to really write down, like, what are my skills, right? What are the things I'm good at? What are the things I'm not good at? And it took me a lot of like deep searching to see that, okay, I just finished a degree in educational technology. I don't have much experience in that, but I do have a bachelor's in computer science, and I have some experience in that. So I started building a small portfolio and talking to the people and seeing, hey, like, I'm looking for work in this field. Do you have anything for me? Slowly, for a few months, I did not hear anything, just to be honest. But soon, I started getting smaller projects, and now I have 2 big clients. And when I really think about that, it took me some time to sit down and really reflect on my life about what are the things that I'm good at, and how, as Joel said, how can I use that to solve a problem and make money? And that's why I started a computer science, full stack web development service. But I'm also a great teacher. I don't want to praise myself too much, but it's a reality that I have to cope with. I'm a great teacher, so I, use that to teach people computer science. I have students from kindergarten till all the way till grad school in computer science, and whoever is also wanting to switch a career, I'm also able to assist them, having been someone who knows the technical knowledge, and as also someone who has a humane approach towards teaching and approaching life.
Yeah, so for me, why I started a professional and careers support business was because I was initially doing it as an independent contractor. So I was doing an independent contracting for a nonprofit. And during COVID, that nonprofit went under, they went bankrupt, right? So I built quite a bit of skills within that nonprofit and working as an independent contractor, and kind of getting that push from my contract supervisor at that time, who's like, hey, you're really good at this, like, why don't you use your psychology bachelor's degree and do this for people with disabilities. There's a lot of money in that industry, because it's all state funded, it's all taxpayer dollars going into assisting people with disabilities and who want to enter the workforce but don't have advocates and don't have organizations or companies that are advocating or servicing that that target market, right? That's your target market. And so I went for it. I really just kind of did my research. I read a lot of books. I did a lot of reading and a lot of research before establishing myself as an actual entity. And that's how it kind of came to be. And then I started off as a resume service business. So I was just building resumes at first, and you kind of just, as an entrepreneur, you have to pivot and adapt to what your market wants, or where the money is at. So I started kind of pivoting from resume services to career services, and then I pivoted again to professional development services, so that I can have a larger customer base, right? So slowly, kind of one contract started opening the doors to other opportunities, and so it's what I'm doing now. And but as Kunmir said, kind of assessing what skills, interests you have will kind of also help guide you into knowing what kind of business you want to start, or businesses if you want to be a serial entrepreneur.
Amazing, right? It sounds like we're getting really into the pre-thoughts of before you launch your business, right? And I like how you all mentioned a certain aspect of research, of assessing what skill sets you have, and knowing the value that your skill sets have, enough to be like, hey, you got to pay for it. As Myra said, trauma is not free. And so now that we've gone through that, and also just establishing, right, that we need a lot of patience in this entrepreneurship game, because it might not catch as soon as you may want, but as long as there's consistency and patience and assessing, right? How all you mentioned pivoting a lot, and just making sure you're getting the sweet spot right when it comes to your business. So going into the next question, so we established the research and the kind of the pre-launch. Now we're going to go into the launching of your business. And if each panelist can give our attendees, what is the first step you took to launch your business, whether it's creating the LLC, any type of establishing of your business, a business plan? Did you have a certain mentor that you discussed with? Can you just talk a little bit about what was that first step?
Okay, so again, fully transparent, I do not have an LLC, and that's just because I'm petty. A lot of people believe that you have to have an LLC in order to be a business. But no, you can be an independent contractor, be a fictitious business name, a sole proprietor. Let's just say sole proprietor. You do not need to have an LLC. So the way I see it is, how can I save money? Because when I started, I had nothing. I was on the negative. I had just graduated from school. And so I started, the first step was to look into friends, also UndocuEntrepreneur friends that were already in the field. How did you do that? How did you go about that? And they were super, super helpful in being very straightforward. Step one, get your EIN. It's free in the IRS. Step two, think of, actually the first one is think of a name. How would you want to show up in your business? Step two, get the EIN. Step three, get the doing business as or the fictitious business name, which was $52. The EIN was free. And then the step four was to post it in the newspaper, which is a requirement in order for your business to be legit. And that was $35. So that was all the money that I had to spend on. And I actually had to borrow that money in order to set up the business. So under $100, I was able to set it up. Then I did get the general liability insurance, which you have to have. Mine is about $30 per month. And so when I started doing businesses with different organizations, a lot of them required an LLC. But when I asked why, there was no reason why. And so as I showed the paperwork that the county gave me for my fictitious business name and my EIN, they were like, okay, this is all we need. Also, if you have an LLC, you have to pay an $800 fee every year when you do your taxes on top of whatever taxes that you need to pay. And that's something that it wasn't worth it for me. If I had any other type of business, and my colleagues here are free to share if why it was worth it for them, but for me it wasn't. And so that's my story.
Sort of my first steps was I honestly wanted to get the experience in the field that I wanted first. I wanted to pursue just to make sure it was something that I really wanted to commit to. So that's kind of why I started. And once I, realized that, okay, this is something I want to do, I honestly started advertising first before I even went into any legal procedures of getting an LLC or EIN number. And I don't know if I've shared, but I'm also documented. So that allowed me to get it. But to be honest, I'm learning so much about leveraging other people's money, which is, we can talk about that a whole nother time. If anyone wants to talk about it, I am totally doing webinars on it soon. But I realized that having an EIN number and having an LLC, you can literally get funding for your company just based on that. You don't need, or you can also have an ITIN number if you're capable of having that. That can also help you build credit without a social security number. So these things can help you get other people's money to leverage for funding wise, meaning you could get funding from banks, you can get funding from private lenders, angel investors. Sharing my story has actually really helped me with angel investors and, them just taking interest in your story because they're like so passionate about it. Not all, but you'll find the right ones. So I think owning a EIN number, if you just want to go that route, it really just depends on what you want to do. I know I wanted funding, so I was like, let me set my LLC up right first because that allows me to get funding. But and funding just with your business, like you don't have to have a social for it.
Sweet. For me, I feel like the first step, I knew that legally, like I can do independent contracting, whether you want to go through the LLC way or just the independent contracting way. For me, it was about what is actually my business. I think that is one of the most important part of this whole thing, if not the most important part, because wherever you're going, you have to be, you have to talk about it in a way with confidence so that your clients can actually trust you. You have to show them the portfolio or whatever you have done or whatever you're capable of doing. Otherwise, you might be missing an opportunity that might have given you the experience to have another opportunity later. So for me, it was about figure out what your business is, and exactly talk about what you're able to provide as a value and what they're looking for, right? Once you develop that, I think whether you want to go the independent contracting way, whether you want to do LLC, those things, they might have a small difference or big difference, but the constant that's going to stay, that's going to build you going forward is what is the value you are providing to your clients.
Yeah, so everyone brought up some great points, and I think Kundamir kind of touched on something real important is being able to articulate what you're providing, right? Like, because if you don't know what your services are or what your product is, like if you can't seem confident on what you're selling, then like how do you expect a customer or a client to know what you're like, to know that you're going to be able to provide a a good service or a good product or a credible, be a credible company or a credible business to partner with. So being able to articulate that. Number one thing that I tell most people too is you want to make sure that you test your idea, you test your business idea. And it's great to like maybe ask friends, but like your friends are not going to be the only like people to consume your product or your service. So you want to make sure that you get out there and you kind of ask your target market, like, hey, like I'm thinking about selling this, or hey, I'm thinking about providing these services. Can you give me some feedback, or can you tell me like what you think, or would you buy, or would you consume? So because as Meyer mentioned, once you establish yourself as an actual entity, you're required to pay your taxes, you're required to have your paperwork in order. So if you're not seeking to establish yourself as a business entity just yet, because the commitment is a lot higher, then start off as an independent contractor and kind of like gain those skills first and gain that credibility first before you go off and establish yourself as a separate entity. The benefits of having an LLC or S Corp or C Corp or partnership, all that stuff is that you separate yourself from the liability of your of whatever product or service you're providing, right? So myself, I'm not providing my services as Joel. So if I ever do come into an issue with the client or a customer, they can't sue me. They'll go after my LLC, the separate business entity. And as Myra mentioned, you need to have that liability insurance for that reason, right? You want to make sure that you cover your assets, you cover your butts, so that you're practicing and you're delivering services or products accordingly. And it also may, those requirements or licenses or certifications may change depending on what state you're in as well. So you want to make sure to do your research before you go into a certain business industry, because if your status prohibits you from obtaining certain licenses or certifications and you already established a business, then you can't go back on that. You're going to be required to pay those taxes or those fees for an established entity already, right? So do your research, get acquainted with the requirements of your state, your county, your city, etc.
Wow, everyone is just so knowledgeable, right? In that tangible first step, because from the point of deciding, hey, I want to start a business, I want to provide a service or a product, to the actual first step, whether it's trying to see how you can save money on that first step or how you can get funding in different ways, whether independent contracting route, LLC route. I think what's really important to establish, especially with our scholars, our incoming scholars, that the importance of knowing what you're capable of, but also the importance of an ITIN, an ITIN or EIN, and that the possibility of creating your own career pathway with those things are possible. And even as Toby had mentioned, right, you have DACA and you still are going that entrepreneurship route for many, many reasons. And so it's important to know those fundamentals. And then once you've gone past the, okay, I want to start a business, or you know what service or value you want to provide, then let's take those tangible first steps. Let's start with the research. Let's start with what state do I live in? What do I need to do to establish that corporation, and make sure that I go from there. Love where this conversation is going. The chat is popping with how, like, many questions regarding these topics, right? So going into the next question, what services or resources helped you in creating your business? So we can get into, let's say if you had books or podcasts, YouTube, people, even your own campus or community resources. Can you go a little bit more about other external resources that helped you in your business?
For me, there were three main ones. One of them was Immigrants Rising. So if you go to Spark, that immigrantsrising.org, it's full of information. I know somebody asked, what is an independent contractor? It's all there. What is an EIN? What's the difference between an LLC versus an S Corp versus a C Corp? Like all of that information, it's in there and it's free. Anybody can access that information. So that was the first thing that I did. The second thing was also to look into business centers in the community. So for example, the Women Business Center in the Inland Empire also provides one-on-one free consultation services. They walked me through the process of, again, step one, you gotta do this, step one, you gotta do this, step three. And they walked me through the whole process. We did it together in one-on-one consultation. So if you click here, go here, now do this. So all of that was super helpful. For me, I did Google a lot. I did watch a lot of YouTube channels. I did do all of that stuff, but it was very confusing. For me, it was so helpful that somebody walked me through the process step by step. And because there are already businesses that exist that provide these services at no cost to the community, that's what I did. I would love to hear what others did in those first steps.
I'm definitely just like Myra. I actually met Myra through Immigrants Rising. I really wanted to, own my story and get my own education on things and not what other people were telling me. So it was important that I did get in these communities and not just watch the videos or just research, but actually get to know people in the community, because it really is like someone could just think about you and say, hey, I have this opportunity. So I think networking with people as well in real life is really important, apart from listening to your podcasts and, joining organizations like this beautiful community here, can also, it's something I did. I got indulged in community building, and that has taken me a lot of places.
Pretty good. For me, it was about journaling yourself and finding your inner thoughts that are lying inside the dungeons of your heart, really pulling them out. And also surrounding yourself with people who have done this. I was really fortunate to have gone to the same university as Joel, and we met there, and we were friends and we were colleagues who worked at the University of San Francisco. And for someone who has done this before, reaching out to people, I reached out to Joel and we met, and Joel really guided me into the legality of things and what are the things I should be looking out for when doing something like this, right? And really also Googling and YouTube, there's plenty of information out there that you can find. For me, what also helped was just following YouTube channels that are about productivity and really giving you positive thoughts throughout the day. like all of these things can be done. It's but the thing is, life gets you in times where you're sad, where you're feeling down, and all of those things, as we should, because we are human beings. But really listening to positive things and journaling has really helped me in keeping my focus and keeping this business going.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, you guys are taking some of the first steps towards that is by attending these workshops, right? So as Kunamir's mentioned, it's like taking note of the people that are already doing it and reaching out, right? Like networking. Networking was a huge like part of like my business journey and my ability to kind of knock on doors and ask for an opportunity was because of my networking, attending conferences, attending workshops, attending any opportunity that I had to meet people that are doing something or doing similar things has helped me a lot. I'm also a true believer of like the learning never stops. So I do read a lot of books. I do listen to a podcast. My podcast that I turn on, I was actually just looking it up. It's called Podcast by Gimlet. I just turned that on while I'm driving. He talks a lot about like the barriers, the things to look out for, kind of like things to expect as a startup business owner. There's a book called The Lean Startup and the book called The Startup of You, actually written by the guy that started LinkedIn. Also two great reads. If you guys have not checked them out, I highly recommend it. But yeah, networking would be a great first start, kind of reaching out, sending out emails. And as other people mentioned, kind of just Google, YouTube. I also did do a lot of Google searches for local pitch competitions or local pilot programs. I did do 2 entrepreneurship pilot programs, and both of them gave me an opportunity to pitch my business ideas at the end for funding, where I received $12,000 in total. And then I continue to apply for like pitch competitions that are coming up, because I have a pitch deck that I'm always just tailoring of what my business idea is and what makes my business different, so that I can pitch it to investors, pitch it to people that are in attendance, so that they, it engages them or has them interested in learning more about my business, because that's how you get angel investors, as well as Toby had mentioned. So networking.
I love how you all mentioned different varieties of resources, especially most, if not all, were free resources, right? So we did mention YouTube, podcasts. Joel, I wrote down all the books names. I'm definitely going to check them out after this. So thank you for that. I know Kunmir in the chat recommended a podcast, so make sure to check those out. I really want to emphasize the power of networking and immersing yourself in that community, right? You all found each other one way or another through community. And that is so wonderful to really surround yourself with that kind of positivity, those that are in similar situations as you or want to start businesses like you, and the importance of doing that and putting yourself in that headspace, right? So starting with those free resources, knowing what works for you, whether it's YouTube, Google, in-person, pitch contests, anything like that. But as long as you're starting and you're investing in yourself with those resources, you're set up for success, right? So we're actually nearing the end. We have about 7 minutes left before the Q&A, and we have 2 questions left, and I'm going to ask 2 panelists for each question. So this first question, I'm going to say the question. So earlier we talked about the money aspect of whether you were getting a loan or whether you saved money or anything in that regard. I want Myra and Joel, if you can, oh, sorry, no, just kidding. Myra and Toby, if you can dive a little deeper into that financial part, especially whether it's the loan part or saving money part, and dive deeper into roughly, if you don't mind sharing, how much did it cost you? Are you making a profit? How long until you saw that profit? And then Joel and Kunmir will save you for the last question.
Mind you. I'm not selling goods. I am selling myself. I am selling my story. I am selling my knowledge. For that reason, all I needed was, and I'm doing everything via video. So all I needed was internet and a computer. But because I was already a student during the pandemic, I already had all of that. So you should count that as, money that you're investing for your money. But with that being said, I only spent $87 to start my business, which was $52 to get the fictitious business name, plus $35 to post it on the newspaper, and $33 a month for that insurance. So if you want to see it, like $350 for the year for the general liability insurance. That's all I have to do. Up to this point, I'm still processing the unhealthy relationship that I have with money. I'm always feeling like I don't have enough, that I have to have money saved up for a crisis, for an emergency fund. So I still pay every month in case that if anything happens to my business and I have to stop engaging in business, then I can just stop making those monthly payments instead of paying the $350 upfront. And then if something happens, now I'm very happy with my business. I don't think I want to discontinue it. But I'm always, in the defense mode when it comes to money. And I always try to spend the least money that I can and continue to get grants in order for me to provide those free workshops for the community and consultation for community members. I do charge institutions. I do not charge individuals. That is my motto. How about you, Toby?
Myra, much like you, when I started, I was really like, oh my God, I don't want to spend my money. And I feel you, like, I don't want to spend my money, like, want to keep all the money I have. And I got introduced to the concept of spending other people's money, which are grants, right? If you want to write a grant, you can easily go on Fiverr and help. If you're not trying to do it yourself, you can go on Fiverr and find someone that can help you write a grant. You have to have a vision, though, of what your business is, and but you can find someone for $50 that can help you write a grant. If because I like grant money. That's free money you don't have to give back. So grants are always number one on the list of funding. But there are also other people's money as far as banks and things of that nature. And when you want to get capital for your business, I know I have a product and service business. So it takes, like, I want to think about a virtual assistant. I want to think about who's going to work with me, on a consistent basis to help me grow my business. How am I advertising my business? If you're trying to self-fund, it might just seem impossible sometimes to get to the levels you want to get to. So you really want to think outside of the box of, well, how can I use other people's money to leverage my business to get to where I need to get? But before you start that, if it's not a grant, I will highly suggest you have a business plan, because these are ultimately loans, right? You don't want to just accumulate debt and don't know what you're doing with it. So you really want to be very clear about what your vision is. And if you were to get this money, how are you going to spend it to make more money? What is your return on investment? So I don't like to recommend like bank funding unless you have a plan, but it's very available. And I didn't realize till recently that it's available for us in our community as well. There are ways around having a social security. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have a business, if you have, and LLCs are expensive to keep up especially in California, but there are states that you don't have to pay that $800 to have a business there. It's free in some places. It's $250 in some states. So in California, it's $800. You're not getting away from that. So just doing your research on that, and also utilizing your EIN number in LLC to be bank ready to get funding. And if your business is new, there are also things called shelved companies that you can buy because they have history on them. They have business history. So you don't have to start from scratch per se, right? So they're just there's so many ways to get money is what I'm realizing. And for a long time, I was like such on a narrow path of that I was like, no, like I need my money. And it was like, no, actually, I don't have to use my money. I can use their money or that person's money through loans, through grants. Again, grants are number one. I feel you. I don't want to spend any money, but there are ways, is what I'm saying. Just be open to it.
So much passion I'm hearing. Myra and Toby coming through with the funding specifics. And I really like how you mentioned the relationship with money, Myra, and Toby, you're just like, spend other people's money, honey. Joel was snapping a lot too. So as we're nearing, right, the panel, I wanted to end with Joel and Kunmir with the question of what advice would you provide to our Dream.Us scholars? Mind you, most of them now do not have status, or some may have status with work authorization status with DACA and TPS. What advice would you give to them when it comes to becoming entrepreneurs or starting their own business?
I would say that nothing is as hard or complicated as we perceive it to be, and nothing is as easy as we want it to be. You're going to have to put in a lot of work. There are days when I get up in the morning and I am on a laptop, and I go to sleep and I'm still on a laptop. So you're going to have to put in a lot of work. This is not something hard or complicated. And as I said, this is not something that's not easy. So you're going to have to work and really, as I said, journal and think about what are the things that you should be learning? What are the things you don't know yet? What are the things you already know? How are you going to, you have to practice talking about your business. For some of us, it's like, oh, we don't have a business now. A week later, we have a business. You're not used to that terminology or that, confidence about pitching your ideas, what you provide, your services, and all those things. So this is something, it's a battle within yourself that you have to overcome, about believing in yourself, about showing this country that even though all of the systems are set up, quote unquote, to set up against you, but you are someone who is going to make your own road. You are someone who is going to make your own path. When all the roads are blocked and closed for you, you can make your own road. As in the past, everybody else has. Everybody who has made it big, or who's someone great or someone that we admire as a society, they've all had to go through tough times. So instead of at times we might be frustrated because our peers who are citizens, who are permanent residents, they might have it really easy, and we all have those friends, and we might be like, oh my God, it's so easy for them. But we have to channel that energy into making our own road, and I know we can. And the moment that you believe it, that's when you are going to have your own business.
Yeah. Jeez, how do I top that? No, but honestly, just be prepared to make mistakes. I think Myra just posted it up right now. Like, be prepared. Maybe your first idea is not necessarily the business that is going to make you the money, right? So as I mentioned, like I started off as a resume building service, and I was making maybe $500, $600 a month, right? And I pivoted, and then I was making mistakes. I was resilient. I was open to ideas. I was open to suggestions. So be open to feedback, be open to suggestions, and be open to accepting help, because I feel like a lot of us, at least for me, my number one issue was asking for help and accepting help, because I was always in this hustle mentality, like I can do it on my own, I can do it on my own. And just be ready to pitch your ideas, right, at all times, because you never know who you're going to meet. There's instances where you might be talking to someone that's like a CEO or a manager or a hiring individual that you're meeting throughout a simple meet and greet or something like that. Just always be ready to talk about your business if you're going through the business route. If you're going to be independent contracting, don't feel forced to start a business either, right? So because business owning is not necessarily for everyone. You can make as great impact as an independent contractor as you can, as much as you can, being a business owner. And if you have the ability to start your business and your business is thriving, don't forget to give back to the community that is in need. So, you know, myself, now that I'm a business owner, and my business went from making $500 a month to six-figure business now. Like I never in my life would have thought that my business would have been bringing in six-figure revenue. Like, and now I have that ability, and I'm in a position where I'm able to help other undocumented entrepreneurs by doing independent contracting and giving inclusive opportunities to people that want to contract and work with me, right? So I always tell my business owning friends and other entrepreneurs, like, if you have the ability to bring people on board that are undocumented, do it, because we're some of the hardest working people. We work twice as hard as the usual as your usual person. So don't be afraid to fail. If you fail at first, you know, keep trying. Again, networking. And if I think Myra gave an alternative to the word networking, which I loved. If you don't necessarily like networking, you know, just talk with friends, reach out to people on LinkedIn, shoot them a message. You just don't know who you're going to have the ability and the privilege to get to know and hear their story and see how they can also help you achieve your business dreams. Mentorship is a great component. I have my mentors, I have my business advisors, I have my friends and my people in my community that I'm always asking and reaching out for help and feedback, etc. So hope that we can get more entrepreneurs of color, more undocumented entrepreneurs. I think that we have the ability to do it if we just share this information, and I think the TheDream.Us is doing a great job right now by, you know, sharing that information now, because I didn't have this information when I was growing up. So take advantage of it.
Y'all, wow, what inspiration that was, right? We're seeing it in the chat. Yeah, everyone wants to connect with you all and continue building community. I'm seeing attendees even sharing their own services, asking their questions, and just really am grateful to have shared this space with you all, and for you all to tell your stories to us and the attendees. So with that, we will have time for one question. And the question is, and for anyone who wants to answer it, it goes, for online businesses, what apps or sites could you use for selling products or services? I've tried using Gumroad before, but I needed a social security number. If anyone wants to take that.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. For online businesses, what apps or sites could you use for selling products or services? I've tried using Gumroad before, but I needed a social security number.
Personally, I use Squarespace is what I use for just like a website, just to advertise what my business is. I've heard Shopify is really good as well. And all of these things, once it's time for like the payment page, I'm only putting my EIN number on there for tax purposes. Like when you're, you know, they use Stripe or Square to process payments. If that's something you're doing that way, but you also don't have to do it that way. You can use whatever you have for payment. But if you are like going in, if you have an LLC, then you would have to like go through like processing, like a processing service, just to have invoices, right? You want to invoice your clients and things like that. But I would say Shopify or Squarespace. GoDaddy also has, you can also build websites on GoDaddy too as well. But I know Shopify is like really popular.
Yeah, so Shopify, and if you're providing services, invoicing, kind of streamlining all of that, you can do it through QuickBooks. QuickBooks has a self-employment option. I think it's like $7. If it hasn't increased, they increase it a lot. I'm actually kind of mad about that, but Yes, QuickBooks, Shopify are like the main ones. There's if you're selling goods through a website, you can actually connect your website to Stripe as well, so that you can accept payments. Stripe is also another one. So if you have a really good website and you're selling products that you just take quick payments, Stripe is another good site that you can use.
And I see here in the comments too that if you want to hire a professional through Fiverr, Upwork, etc., to ensure you receive quality site and that it meets all your needs, it's also cool. So make sure that if you don't have that skill set to create their website, there's always those that do and are willing.
Contact Kunmir.
Nice plug. So with that, we are at the hour. Thank you so much to you all for sharing your story, being so inspirational and vulnerable and open about your journey as entrepreneurs. Everyone in the chat would love to connect with you. So if you could please drop your LinkedIns, your ads, a lot of them are asking about mentorship or how they can continue connecting with you all or being in community with you all. So thank you again for being rock star Undocu entrepreneurs and for sharing your stories today. I hope everyone has a great rest of their night. This was recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube page. So